How's everybody doing? Welcome back to the Investor Army podcast. We have a good episode for you today. We're talking about something that you probably don't get to hear about much. It's one of the more glamorous types of ways to pick up deals in the business. Now, everybody, that's doing direct mail and other types of strategies like signs, that's pretty boring. But what's fun is going down to the auction. And we're going to learn a little bit more about the auction process today. I have an expert, Arnie Abramson, on our call today, guys. Let me introduce you to him right now, and we're going to get into about every different way you can basically benefit through going to the auction process. And this is going to be a great call. So get ready, turn everything up, and pay attention.
I'm here. Great.
All right.
I was watching one of your interviews the other day, and I heard Mike say that you had more listeners than anyone in the country under 40. And it occurred to me that if that's correct, I've probably got shoes older than you. So,
well, I mean, we're out there on a number of different things, a number of different platforms. As we were talking a little bit ago, my goal is to basically kind of change the education process in the business, to bring things down more to the home study course level, the membership sites, and to steer people away from these big training companies because, it's doing a huge disservice to take 50 grand from people, give them a little CD course or give them a little booklet, and then let them go out there and try to figure it out. And we were talking about the flipping frenzy right now. And it's not as easy as they make it seem. You go and you get into these big rooms. There's a lot of excitement. They demonstrate social proof because you watch other people buy the program. And then you go out there in the real world and realize, hey, this is not what I signed up for. So we're trying to do with all the free stuff and the low price point education to kind of shift the education curve. And I know you got something that we'll talk about towards the end of this episode. But go ahead and let people know who you are and kind of how you got into the auction process, because this is something that I think a lot of people are interested in because it is not something that everybody's doing in their business.
You're correct. It's very interesting. In my former life, I was a financial planner.
Okay.
And when I moved to Dallas in 1990, I had gotten sort of burned out on that. And my wife took me to a real estate club meeting one night. And, they were talking about different ways to get involved in real estate. And one of them was through tax sales. And after the program was over, she gave me a little nudge in the ribs and said, let's go talk to that guy over there, because he raised his hand when the speaker said, anybody here ever do tax sales? And there were only 4 people who had raised their hands. So we went and talked to him, and it turned out to be a situation that the guy had just moved to town. He didn't have the time, but he knew what to do. He had been doing it in another city. And we had the time, but didn't know what to do. So we formed a joint venture with him and really learned at by his tutelage for the next 2 or 3 years. We formed a joint venture, and in the first 12 months, we bought 10 properties at the tax sales. So it was a real learning on the job. Now, and that was really beneficial. And we continue to do a lot of that over the years. We eventually struck out on our own and did other things. We did foreclosures from HUD and VA and things like that, and wound up teaching after I'd had enough years under my belt. But in 2008, 9, and 10, when the Great Recession was sort of imminent, I thought this is the time to really start hitting again on the tax sales, because there were going to be more foreclosures.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did was start teaching people about it. And then I realized something that, like you mentioned, these national companies have found out that most people don't want to do all the work.
Yeah.
They get taught what to do, but it's a lot of work. So I switched and started telling people, look, I'll do the work and you can pay me if you're successful. And that's when our business, as it is today, took off, because everyone wanted to do it. Now, that was 7 or 8 years ago, and it was very glamorous then. A lot of people didn't know much about it. Since then, because there are so many things going for the tax sales in Texas, and in particular Texas, because the fundamentals of real estate are so good here that everyone's flocking here. And, I would love to be able to tell all your listeners, hey, just go to the auction and buy anything. It's really easy. I got to tell you, it's no easier than any other part of this real estate market now. It's a seller's market. And the buyers at the auctions, they're bidding them up like crazy. The hedge funds are here. The private equity funds are here. The REITs are here. They're all. And so the competition is there. So what are we doing about it? Well, there was a famous baseball player once in the late 1800s who was leading the league. He was this little short shrimp of a guy, and he was leading the league in hits. And they said, Willie, his name was Wee Willie Keeler. And they said, Willie, how do you get all these hits and no one else does? He says, I hit them where they ain't. And that's the advice. So what we're doing is we're saying, where is the most competition? And let's go where there is less competition.
Yeah.
For example, the biggest competition are in the 5 major cities in Texas: Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. The least competition is in the smaller counties that they're not going to.
Yeah.
Another thing, the big competition is on the higher priced houses. By that I mean over 100,000 in value, because they don't want to send all these hedge funds and people. They don't want to send their guys out to some little county that only has 3 properties on the list and none of them over 60,000 where they can't make much money, because what they're doing is they're buying, and the reason they're buying them so high is they're buying them, renting them up, and then securitizing the rents, as opposed to what they were doing in our last debacle, where they were just securitizing the properties themselves. Now they're securitizing the rents. So if they can pay their investors 5, 6, 7%, cash on cash on their rentals, that's better than their money sitting in the bank making 1%. Now, we as investors don't want to take that low on. So it's hard for us to compete against them. The other thing is everybody is in Texas because look what's going on. We're creating jobs. The economy is great. The real estate prices are going crazy. So we have actually taken a step I never thought we would do. We're also, in addition to going to the smaller counties as well as the big ones, we're also looking at some niche markets that we found outside of Texas.
Yeah.
So you have to go where the deals are. And, one of the things I used to see that gurus would tell people when they're starting out, hey, get your first property, 15 minutes from your house, because that way you can go check on it. To me, I said, well, does that mean you want your tenants to be your neighbors? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, what would you rather have? A house in Dallas that you paid the selling at the highest it's ever been, and you're getting a very low return, or would you rather get one that is worth a lot more than what you pay for it and giving you a good cash flow, but it happens not to be in your backyard?
Yeah.
You have to look and see what your objectives are.
Well, I mean, it comes down
So
to
our two objectives are 2 things. We want to educate and we want to find the deals for our people that we're working with.
Well, I mean, and basically what I was going to say is that it comes down to a limiting belief, and every investor, including myself, they can't get over this. How do I buy a house that I can't really see or touch? But at the same time, they know there's investors all around the country buying in different states and buying all around the country. So he just gave you a lot of really good advice, guys. And we've talked about this on other episodes and on our YouTube channel. Go into the secondary and tertiary markets. There's less competition. If you're going down to like you just said, if you're going down to these main counties in your area or whatever state you're in, there's going to be a bunch of competition. This is why we have guests like Arnie on here to tell you the truth, because you're not at some seminar where they're basically saying, oh, you're going to be a millionaire next week, just pay us $50,000. And then once we get your credit card information, you're never going to hear from us again. So even though there is a lot of competition, you can still get deals down at auction, right? So let's go over the auction process, kind of start to finish, walk everybody through, and we'll go through here piece by piece, because I've never bought a house at the auction. This is not something I've done. So I'm interested in this call for selfish reasons, I guess you could say, because I want to know, what you do. And a lot of people are probably interested as well. So how do you even start about going down to auction? What's the first thing you would do if you're a brand new investor and this is a strategy that you think you're interested in doing?
Well, the first thing you need to do is decide what county you want to go to. And, that's one of the attractions to Texas versus other states. We have 254 counties. And we have auctions every month. Now, not every county is going to have an auction every month. Some of the counties don't have as many people as the number of people on this call, for example,
Yeah.
and they're not going to have an auction every month. But the big five will, those big five big cities. But even the secondary cities don't have them every month. Like Waco, their county is every other month. Abilene is every 3 months. Longview and Tyler, whenever they feel like it. Beaumont is every several months. So they're all different. But a lot of the states only have one sale a year. But in Texas, we have them every month. Somewhere between 40 and 70 counties will have a sale in Texas every month. Now, having said that, there's not going to be a sale in July because all the sales are always on the first Tuesday, and the first Tuesday in July is July 4th.
Okay. So
there probably will not be a sale next month in July.
So
the first thing you do is you have to find out which counties are having a sale. Now, you can find that out. The easiest way is go to our website because we publish a list of every county. This is a free list. Every county that's having a sale, what the county seat is, and how many properties there are. You can go to our website and just click on that and find out because it's going to be different every month. And we have to update it every 2 or 3 days because on the 8th of the month, they may have 30 counties, and each county comes on at a different time. And some of them don't come on until 10 days before the sale. So you need to continually, check them and see. So that's the first step. And then once you find the county, you got to go find the list of the properties that are available for sale. And then you have to look at the list and say, okay, which ones of these just on first blush look like they're interesting enough for me to do further research.
Okay.
For example, let's say that you're looking for cash flow. Well, you don't want to look at raw land because what kind of cash flow does that produce? So you will eliminate those if that's your objective. And then you have to look at, okay, what's the minimum bid versus the appraisal value? If that spread is too low, then don't waste your time on it. So you can whittle them down as you go. Then the next step, this sounds like one of my classes that I want to talk about what the steps are. The next thing is let's take the ones that have survived your culling and let's go visit the properties and see what they look like. And don't rely on Google. Google's picture may be 3 years old, or it may be the one down the street. So it's good to get an idea of it, but don't rely on that. You must go see a property or know somebody's going to see it or pay somebody to go take pictures for you. And you need to see, what do you need to know? You need to know if it's vacant or if it's occupied. That's number one. And what kind of care are they taking on there? And what's the neighborhood like? We have this expression that you can improve a house, but you can't improve a neighborhood. So let's go see what the neighborhood looks like too.
Yeah.
So, and this is part of what we teach, by the way. And then after you see the ones you like, then you come back and now you have to crunch the numbers. You have to crunch the numbers. If I pay this much for it and the rehab is this much and the rent is this much, then I can figure out what my projected cash flow is based on that, on those 3 variables. And then I can play what if. And that's how you come up with what your maximum allowable bid should be. And then if you can get it less than that, you're great. So, and then you have the problem of what happens if you win the bid? I've seen a lot of seminars and they tell people, okay, you go out and you do this, but they don't ever say what happens once you win the bid. You go knock on that door to tell the people, hello, I just bought your house. Only once in my career has this happened. Over 25 years, I knocked on the door once, and a guy came to the door, and I said, we just bought your house at the tax sale. And he said, come in, I've been expecting you. That only happened once. All the rest of the time, they're in denial, or I thought my husband paid that, or whatever it is. And the next words out of my mouth are, don't worry, we don't want you to move.
Yeah.
Because I want to put them at ease. I want to say, we're not here to kick you out. Why would I want to kick them out? If I bought this house and they're used to paying rent, now they just have to start paying it to me.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a snapshot answer to your question. And as I warn all the people that I talk to, I'm not a person of short answers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, guys, this is not the same game as wholesaling, and I know a lot of people on here are wholesalers. You can't you have to have the money to close on these properties, and as a wholesaler, you can just get a house under contract with not much risk. You have to go down and inspect these properties because you're actually buying them. So what happens? So say as far as financing these properties, you win a bid. What is it like here in Texas? And if you know about the other states as well, kind of what's the process? Do you have X amount of time to get the money in? What types of funding do they accept? Because a lot of people would like to go down to auction, but most people, the financing that they get, they have to get a house under contract, bring it to someone like a hard money lender or a private money lender, have this long, drawn out process, bring a contractor bid. You have to be on top of your game, know what you're doing, go in, go for the strike, go for the kill, know everything that you're doing, have all your cards face up, and be prepared. So kind of tell people how that process works. Once you win a bid, then what?
Well, it's very interesting. It will vary county by county.
Okay.
For example, in Houston and Dallas, Harris County is Houston and Dallas County is Dallas. They stop the auction until you pay the price right then. Right then, you have to have cashier's checks. Okay. Now, the other counties, for the most part, will allow you 2 or 3 hours usually to go to the bank and get a cashier's check, but not Houston and not Dallas. Right then and right there, and it's got to be cash. All of them, all the counties insist it must be that day. It must be the day of the auction. There's no wait and go get financing and that type of thing. So you've got to pay for it that day in cash. Well, cashier checks is accepted everywhere. Some counties will not even take cash. Most counties do. Some will. There's one county I know they'll take a credit card and you get mileage. They charge you 3%.
Yeah.
You know. Some counties will take a personal check. Most will not. So every county is different. That's something we make everybody memorize. Every county is different. And generally, and they're all on the same day also. Most of them are in the mornings. Some are in the afternoon. Now, a few years ago, they passed a law in Texas that says in a county of 250,000 people or more, you must get a bidder's certificate before you are allowed to bid. And you have to go before the auction to get this certificate. And to get the certificate, you have to, number one, pay them $10. And you have to, they have to check to make sure you don't owe any taxes in that county before they will allow you to bid. Now, the big counties, that's the law. The smaller counties can choose to adopt that or not. Many of them are starting to.
Yeah. Okay. So so I guess right when you pay, what type of, so how does the deed transfer? What type of deed do you get? Is there any issues with title issues? This is commonly what people ask me about.
All of the above.
Yeah.
When you buy it the day of the auction, you will get a receipt.
Okay.
Because it will be a while before you get the deed. And the deed you get is the sheriff's deed, or in some counties it's a constable's deed. And they hasten to add with no warranties. Okay. Now, that means that it's not like a title policy, but it is good because you have to understand that here's how it works. This is another long answer, I'm afraid, but let me give you the full answer. Every year, January 1, when you own a property, a tax lien is issued on that property. Until you pay it, it is a lien. Now, when they sell the property at the auction, you don't get that lien, you get a deed. And I'll come back later about the difference between the tax liens, tax deeds in the States. But you get a tax deed in Texas, which means you get immediate ownership of the property. Immediate. Okay? Now, you have the title, and eventually you will get the sheriff's deed. Now, you asked about the title policy. A lot of people get this that I'm about to tell you confused with the right of redemption in Texas. So let me start there so I can tell you the difference. If you buy a property at the auction, let's say you buy a $100,000 property and you pay $40,000. The old owner and anyone who has an interest in that property can buy it back from you. They call that, they can redeem it. They can buy it back, but they must pay you what you paid for it plus 25% if it's within the first year and 50% if it's within the second year. Now, that's the highest redemption penalty rate in the country.
It's pretty good.
And unlike most of them, it's not prorated. That means that if you buy it today and they redeem it next week, you get the full year's 25%. And if it's 1 year and 1 day, it's 50%. Now, that's the right of redemption. How long do they have that right? It's only for 180 days, unless it's their homestead. Then they have 2 years.
Okay.
If they have that right. Homestead, or if it's an agricultural exemption, or if it's a mineral lease. Those are the 2 years. Other than that, it's 180 days. Now, that has nothing to do with what I'm about to tell you is there's a separate law, another code that says if someone who had an interest in that property was not properly notified, they have the right to contest the sale for up to 2 years if they were not properly notified. Now, you would think there'd be a lot of people that would try to do that. It's almost never done. Because the first thing that they have to do if they protest and say, I wasn't notified, is they say, okay, put up the money that you would have paid off if you were notified. And that gets rid of a lot of the frivolousness. So those are two separate deals. Now, it almost never happens. In fact, in 25 years, I've only had one call about someone who said I wasn't notified, and it was a lawyer trying to bluff. Because when I checked it out, I called him back and I said, not only was your client notified, but you were the one who responded.
Yeah.
So he was just being a lawyer. So now, even though it almost never happens, the title companies hang their hat on it. And most of the title companies are going to tell you they cannot give you a marketable title until that 2-year period has passed, even if it's redemption's over in 6 months. Some title companies want 4 or 5 years. But right now, 2 years is about what it is. Now, that doesn't mean you can't sell it. That just means you have to disclose that, number one, you've got a title. Now, here's what you have to understand. If you buy it at the tax sale, it wipes out all non-governmental liens, including mortgages. So there may not be that much of a need for title clearing, if they don't have any government liens on it. But if you're going to try to borrow money against it, the lenders, as a rule, will not loan money unless without a title policy. So that's sort of the hang up there.
Yeah, so that's some really, really good information. So what he said right there at the end, guys, so be very careful if you say, I just want to go to the auctions and buy a house, and you're borrowing money from a close family member, a private lender. He just said that you probably can't go get a bank loan to cash them back out if that was your goal, to borrow money, buy it, and then finance out. Their money may be tied up for a long time. I think a lot of people have a question over, so you got this lag time period, this period of redemption, and before you basically gain title. What are you legally allowed to do with the property? Can you rent it? Can you do repairs to the property? And then what happens if you put repairs on the property and they do come redeem the property? Are you indemnified? Do they pay you back? What happens in this situation?
I tell you what, you're asking excellent questions. Really, those are the ones your readers your listeners need to know. When you buy the property, you have every right that the previous owner had, except the right to redeem it. He has no rights. That's all he has left is the right to redeem it. That means you have the right of possession, and you can collect the rent. Now, because there is that right that he can redeem it, and he has to pay you back what you paid for it plus 25%. Now we get into the question of, okay, now what about any other outlays that you may have? Well, here's what the code says, and I'm paraphrasing to an extent, but you can go in and you can get repaid for anything that is to maintain, preserve, or safekeep the property. And those are the 3 magic words that's in the code: maintain, preserve, and safekeep the property. For example, any insurance premiums you pay, that's a great example. If you paid some insurance on the house, that's certainly to maintain, preserve, and safely keep the property. But it also means this. If you're not living in the house, it's a rent house. So that means it's to maintain, preserve, and safe keep it as a rent house. What does that mean? If the carpet's worn out, replace the carpet. If there's a hole in the roof, fix the hole in the roof. But it doesn't mean you can upgrade. You can't take the Formica countertops and turn them into granite and expect that if they redeem it, they're going to pay you that back plus 25%.
Yep.
But they will all the other things, including, by the way, bringing it up to code. Because now that it's a rent house, if it wasn't before, look what you have to do now. It's state law. You have to put these peepholes in every outside door. You have to have a keyless deadbolt on every outside door, plus a regular deadbolt. Plus you have to have smoke alarms and carbon dioxide and latches on every window and pin locks and a bar on every sliding glass door. That's state law. And so you have to do all that if it's going to be a rent house. And if they redeem it, they have to pay you that back plus the 25% on all of it.
Yeah. And safe to assume, guys, take very, very good records so you don't have any trouble proving this later. So
you're exactly correct, because the person who's redeeming it has the right to demand to see an accounting for everything you spent. So we suggest you take before and after pictures and keep every receipt.
You never want to get down into the he said, she said battle. And there's lots of times you can get into that battle in this business, working with contractors, all sorts of places. So guys, document some more every time you're doing something where you're putting up money. Let's kind of clarify the redemption amount, the 25%. So say you bought a house for $100,000 and had, $20,000 in back taxes on it. You're not getting 25% back on $120,000, just the back taxes, right? Or how does that process work?
All right, here's how it works. Let's say we've got a $100,000 house and they owe $8,000 in taxes. That's our model, okay? So the bidding starts with $8,000. So if nobody bids except one person and pays $8,000, that $8,000 goes to pay off the taxes, period. But in all likelihood, it'll get bid up to 40, 50, 60, 70,000. Well, the first 8,000 goes to pay off the taxes. The rest is what they call excess funds.
Okay.
And the owner of the house that lost the house is entitled to that. But if he doesn't claim it in 2 years, the county gets it. So it's a very interesting little side business. That's a class in itself. But don't listen to any out-of-state gurus that come along and say, hey, just call the people up and tell them you'll split with them and show them how to get the $60,000 extra. Because in Texas, the law says that you cannot charge more than 25%, not to exceed $1,000, and you must be an attorney to do it.
Yeah.
So these out-of-state gurus are coming in and selling, charging $2,000 to teach you what I just told you.
Yeah.
And you can't do it in Texas legally.
Well, there's a lot of that going on out there. People are, they're trying to sell the programs. They don't know what they're talking about. And a lot of times they just went through some other program, reverse engineered it, repackaged it, and they're not the expert, and they're just trying to pump it out there. So guys, be very careful. Know your state laws, because we probably have people on here from all around the country in different states. Connor,
let me also, if I may, talk about the difference between a tax lien state and a tax deed state.
Okay.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
A tax lien is sort of like a bond versus tax deed is sort of like a stock. One is equity and one is not. Well, in a tax lien state, which Texas is not, that $8,000 in the example, $100,000 house, they owe $8,000 in taxes. What you're bidding on is that $8,000 note that they owe for taxes. And they may pay 16% interest or 18% interest. In many states, what you do is it starts out at 18% interest if you buy that tax lien. And the next guy says, well, I'll take it for 15. Somebody says, I'll take it for 13. Somebody says, I'll take it for 12. And the lowest interest rate acceptable is how they sell those. Yeah. Now, Texas is a tax deed state. $8,000 they owe in taxes, $100,000 value of the house. The bidding starts with that $8,000. And the highest bidder gets the property. So that's the difference. That's why I say it's sort of like a bond in a stock. In a tax lien state, what you're getting is that tax lien. In a tax deed state like Texas and Georgia and some of the others, you're getting the property.
Yeah, which is very important, guys, because you need to know this before you go down there, because all these auctions are not the same. Now, let's say someone's going down to the auction. They hear they hear this podcast. They're like, "This is something I'm interested in doing." You need to be very careful on which house you buy and the repairs and kind of knowing your market as far as running your numbers. What's the process of viewing the property? Is there a time period where they allow you access to the property? Or I know a lot of people kind of sneak in and jump in the window or open the garage. Kind of what's the process? Because, you may be bidding blind on some of these properties, right? Or how does that kind of work?
Well, you're correct. That's one of the big problems is almost every county out there has some sort of a warning that says the fact that this house is being offered at the tax sale does not give you the right to trespass on it. Now, think about this. What if your house was on the tax sale and 50 people started ringing your doorbell and coming and saying, "Hey, your house is on the tax sale. I want to come look inside." This is Texas. How many times does that have to happen where you come to the door with a shotgun?
Yeah.
So you're really discouraged from going and bothering the people in the house. Now you can go and take pictures from the public, from the street. If it's vacant, it's a little different because sometimes you can look in the windows and stuff like that. But if it's occupied, it's tough. And so the tough part is to estimate what kind of rehab. And that's the toughest part of all. That's why we concentrate on buying properties that are occupied, because if they're occupied, most of the time, I think they're going to still have copper and they still have wiring and they still have the major systems working. And I say most of the time. We have bought a house where a guy was camping out and none of that stuff worked. But at least most of the major systems are working. Whereas you don't know in a vacant house if you can't get in it. Everything could be gone. So it's always a tough guesstimate.
Yeah. So, one of the strategies people go after are, going after these properties before they go to auction. Is there ever any disputes or ever any altercations on, what happens if someone goes and gets to one of these properties before it goes to auction and then somehow there's like a delayed closing or there's a closing? How does that time relationship to the actual auction if someone tries
to... There's no such thing as the closing. There's no such thing as closing. When you buy it at the auction, it's yours. Period. End of story. Now, if you go to the property you're saying and someone doesn't want to get out, is that what you're
I'm talking
suggesting?
About as far as, say someone's marketing to, the pre-foreclosure list or the foreclosure list. Yeah, we had a guest come in the back. But say they went and had an agreement to buy the property before the foreclosure sale before the auction with the homeowner of the property, and then the closing got delayed or something, or it happened the same day, or does this even come up, or am I just completely off on a tangent here?
If it goes to the sale, it's done deal.
Okay.
Now, every now and then, the sheriff will call you the next day and say, "Oh, they closed this in the office and we didn't know about it when the sale happened.
Yeah.
We'll undo it." But that's very rare.
Okay.
Very rare. Usually it's a done deal, and they tell the people, "You want your house back? Go redeem it."
Yeah. What is it? Here in Texas, you said it's very competitive. What typically is the winning bid on a property? What are they getting bid up to? Are you able to get quality deals, or is it getting to where it's tough to get them? And I know the hedge.
It's very tough in Dallas and Houston and in the big cities. Last month we were bidding. We were bidding on a house that had an appraisal value of $112,000. It sold for $132,000. So who knows? We bought one last month for $26,500 in another smaller county, $26,500, and then we bought one near Waco for $31,000. So we're going to the smaller counties. Hunt County, we're doing there, and Grayson County, and all around the Metroplex,
yeah.
and Bell County. But it's tough, and it's tough in Dallas and Tarrant. In this area, it's really tough. Now, the lower priced ones is not quite as bad.
Yeah.
But I went to Collin County 3 months ago, And they only had one property they were selling. It was a 400 and something $1,000 house. I bid 285 on it and got outbid.
So it's the hedge funds,
So,
right? They've all moved in here and they're endless amounts of money just overpaying for things, or what do you think?
well, it's not just the hedge funds. There's some other, I don't know how to put this delicately, but there are a lot of cash buyers out there, because if you buy a house for cash at the sheriff's sale, nobody asks any questions where you got the money.
A
Okay.
lot of money being parked in some of these houses, I guess. I mean,
Well, I sat there and, they had these cash machines that make a lot of noise. And last time I was at the Dallas sale, I counted, and there were 65% of them were for cash.
so guys, if you got to launder some money, this is a good way to do it. No, I'm just kidding. Scrap that. We didn't tell you to do
I'm glad you said that, and I didn't.
that. That is not a good strategy. Do not go do that. But I know that a lot of people would want to talk to you further. You have a meetup here in the Metroplex, right? That you have once a month. Tell people how they can come down and talk to you if you're here in Dallas, and then also if you're around the country and you want to talk to Arnie, we'll give him a chance to give his contact information out, and we'll put that under this when we put it out on YouTube. And
Yes, on our website, we have a list of all the events that we'll be at, and we do have a meetup every month in Dallas and in Tarrant County and in Houston usually.
okay. So this is a kind of a niche strategy, guys. When you get into, owner financing, subject to IRA investing, auctions, something outside the normal ABC of wholesaling, rehabbing, and landlording, you need special training. And I know that you have, a pretty good course that a lot of people I know here have gone through. If they're interested in going through that, can you tell them a little bit about your course that you offer?
Well, yes, it's not a course per se, but all of our meetups, we have classes. Usually our meetups are on a Saturday where we give an overview, and then we have a class following usually. That's usually at a Golden Corral or someplace where you get the meal along with it. And we all get to eat a lot. The a couple of things that I think your listeners should know, that there are some real hidden pitfalls that you need to be aware of if you're going to the auction. Number one, for example, is look who's doing the suing. They call out at the auction, this is the city of Dallas versus so-and-so. If it's anything other than the city, the county, or a school district that's doing the suing, in other words, if it's an individual, a corporation, an LLC doing the suing, that's not a tax sale. It's a judgment. And there are people down there, they don't always tell you this is a judgment, not a tax sale. There are people who are bidding on that thinking they're buying the property at the tax sale. And all they're doing is buying a judgment. It may be 12th in line.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, who is doing the suing? Is it just Dallas County, or is it Dallas County and the school district and there are ways to determine that, because there are some cases where people have bought that. In my example, $100,000 property, $8,000 in taxes. They bought it for $40,000 and think, great, paid all the taxes. Then they found out, in addition to that, that was not included in the suit is another $6,000 to the school district, another $12,000 to the county. This was just the city that owed $8,000.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of these type of pitfalls that we talk about and teach, and you need to understand.
Yeah.
So, don't go there and just bid blindly. Go somewhere and try to learn about it. That's why we do that every month, because I want people to know how to do it. Because, here's my reasoning is the taxes that are paid for the properties, the property tax, that goes to pay the schools and the fire department and the police department and all these necessary things. And if people don't pay their taxes, they're going to raise our taxes. So we have a civic duty. We've got to go out and buy them at the tax sale so they won't raise our taxes. So we can get investors on the tax rolls instead of the people who aren't paying taxes. There you go.
So he mentioned bidding there, guys. You need to understand how the bidding process goes. Even though I haven't bought a house down at the auction, I've been down to them a number of times, and many times people embarrass themselves. I've just seen people double bid themselves and all sorts of different things. Can you explain to someone? Because when you go down there, there's a lot of excitement, emotion for a new investor. You've been there a lot, so it's just same old, same old. But when they get in there and they start reading off properties, people get excited. How does the bidding process work? Some people may think that there's a blind bidding process because they may know nothing about the whole process. Does it go round robin, or is it just a free for all? Can you kind of explain how you bid on these properties and how it kind of goes back and forth?
It's just an open auction. You'll say the bidding starts at 8,000, and somebody will say minimum bid, and somebody else will say 8,500, and somebody will say 9,000, 9,200, and just the top bid gets it. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, here we go. 2 years ago, in its infinite wisdom, our legislators passed a law to amend the state constitution that says the counties could go online for the tax sales. Now, it's been 2 years, and they have not done that until next Tuesday.
Wow.
The first county is going to have their auction online. It's Burnett County, and there's almost nothing there worth bidding on, but that's the first one. And it's probably going to take a long time, but it's inevitable. So that's why we're going to expand our educational stuff, because there are going to be a lot more people who are going to want to bid, and we're going to have to be the ones to take pictures for them and teach them about it. So we will be doing a lot more of that, but it's going to take a long time.
Yeah. So I get a lot of questions about, bidding on sites like auction.com and hubzu.com. How are these online auctions being held? How are these properties separate from the normal tax sale? Or I don't.
Well, we don't know because this is the first time. But the auctions now. If it used to be, I don't know when you went to the last auction in Dallas County, because it's 600 Commerce Street. Is where it used to be, and all the trustee sales of the mortgage foreclosures were out on the street, and the tax sales were in the basement. And they've since moved the tax sale there in the old red courthouse. So they're in separate places. But in Tarrant County, they're all at the same place. And so you don't know, how do you know which is the trustee sale and which is the tax sale? I tell people you go where the guy who's got the badge and the gun, because that's where the tax sale is. The other guys are more dangerous. They're all lawyers,
So to increase your chances of getting deals, you want to be at as many as possible. Are you able to send buyers down in representation of your company? Because I'm sure, most people can't go to all of them.
That's a good question.
So
that's a good question also. The law now says that you cannot represent anyone else, but you must be there yourself. However, then it says, unless it's an entity and you're authorized to bid for them. So you can bid for somebody's LLC or corporation or joint venture, but you should have, number one, in the bigger counties, they have to have the authorization, and you have to have authorization that allows you to bid on their behalf.
Do you have to have special?
Or just a letter.
Oh, you just have
a letter.
A letter, okay.
On their stationery.
Prior to the auction, or after you have to bring that before you can even start bidding, I guess, or because you go in and you basically sign in, right? Everybody signs in.
Yeah, in the smaller counties, they all sign in and show that. In Dallas, you don't sign in. You just bid there, and if you don't come up and pay and satisfied, they don't. You turn around and sell it back and sell it again.
Yeah. So typically, what are you seeing as far as turnouts of people showing up here in some of the major counties, and then how many properties usually go up every month?
Well, in Dallas, there's anywhere between 100 and 200 people who show up.
Wow.
In Harris County and Houston, there may be 1,000, because they have 8 different precincts in Harris County, and each precinct has their own auction at the same time at the same place. So they've got 500 to 1,000 people every time, and it's a zoo. And they have 300 properties or more usually, whereas in Dallas they usually have around 80 to 100, and Tarrant about 100 also. Some of the smaller counties, have a lot less. Although Harrison County, for example, which is Marshall, Texas, They only have a sale every now and then, but usually it's 60 or 70 properties when they have a sale.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think this has been a really, really good call. You've given some really good information. I think you kind of helped clarify the process for a lot of people because this is something that not many people, they hear about and they want to do, but I think, a lot of them are deterred by the quick closing process, having to have cash ready. Is there any type of company out there that does like transactional funding or some type of funding for auction buyers? Does that even exist out there? Have you heard something like that?
Well, not only is there not anything like that, but even after you buy it, you can't get financing until we just announced this for what we call our priority members, the people that we're working with. We have now secured financing for them. And it's unheard of. It took me 5 years to get anybody to do it. The lenders. However, they must buy it first for cash, and then they'll do a cash out refi for it. Because we can't, otherwise, stop and think about it. We're going to 12 or 15 different counties every month. And so if everybody goes out there and says, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this. We can't just hand out millions and say, now give it back if you don't do anything, So they have to buy it for cash first, and then our people will give them up to 80%.
Yeah,
cash out.
That's great. I'm sure I'm sure a lot of people are gonna excuse me. I'm sure they're all gonna want to reach out to you and find out a little bit more about that. Go ahead and give me your phone number or any information, your website address again, and just so they know how to get a hold of you. And if you have any,
well, it's really easy, and it's Arnie and it's the same as our website, txtaxsales.com. That makes it easy. TX is in Texas, but don't write out Texas. It's got to be txtaxsales.com.
Yeah.
And Arnie or if you can't remember that, info it'll get to me.
Yeah. And so
that's our website, txtaxsales.com, and we've got a lot of that information online there.
Yeah, he's been around investing for a long time, guys. So you can learn a lot of wisdom from him. We're coming into a situation where right now the big buzz in real estate is when's the next crash? Are there any indicators? Kind of tell your perspective on that, because I know that you're seeing some indicators and you have a belief that we may be coming to reliving history here pretty soon. What is your stance on that?
Well, I think you're correct. As I like to say, we're in the 9th year of a 7-year cycle. We are overdue. And some of the signs that you can see that you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of flipping frenzy.
Yeah.
Where and you see a new meetup every 3 or 4 days, and you've got all these gurus out there saying, "Hey, you don't need anything. We'll do it all for you. You can make $30,000 the first month." Stuff like that. And then the other thing is what I call the guru come lately.
Yeah.
Somebody who started doing this 4 or 5 years ago, they haven't been through one of our recessions, and through one of these corrections. And I have. I've been through several of them.
Yeah.
And so, that doesn't mean that the people who are operating now that have only been doing it a few years, doesn't mean that they're doing anything wrong. But if they start prognosticating, and here's the biggest thing. If you hear these words, we're getting close. When they start saying, this time it's different. Because it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
And there will always be corrections, and it will always happen. So when they say this time it's different, that they're a guru come lately. They haven't been through one, or they haven't studied, and they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, which I think is important to bring up, because I am that guru come lately. I came in after the last crash. I've never been through a crash. And a lot of individuals that, some of us have had some good success, and you kind of get this, you see people start to do a lot of deals, make some money, feel this invincibility complex where nothing can go wrong. And there's been certain deals that we flipped where we basically broke even, and we only got bailed out because of the market going up so much. And as you become more successful and you try to do more deals, You get a little bit more aggressive as far as the deals you take down because you think you can do the work for cheaper. The market's going to appreciate, and so a lot of people are buying on, that increase. And guys, if that market drops, think about all those houses that you basically broke even on that you got bailed out of because of appreciation. Those are big losses now. So you need to be careful and just kind of weigh this into your strategy going forward. What do you think is a good strategy right now? Because so once you get these houses, what's your main strategy? And at the top of the market, would you be starting to keep more rental properties, or is this a time to kind of hoard cash? Or
Well, here's the way I look at it. Only two things could happen if we have a correction soon. Either it won't affect us very much, or it'll hit us hard. Okay. Now, the last time it really didn't affect us that much, and the fundamentals in Texas are so good. Toyota's not going to all of a sudden stop moving people here. And in Texas, the economy and the real estate fundamentals are so much better than almost everywhere else in the country. People are still going to keep coming in. And I don't think it'll be much of a problem. If it hits us hard, all that means is we're going to have more foreclosures, more properties at the tax sales. So the bottom line is, just as you asked, so what should we do now so that we're okay now and in the future? My answer is you buy for cash flow.
yeah,
Because if you buy for cash flow and you've got it now and it goes up or down, you're okay. You're insulated. People still have to live somewhere. And last time what happened was they cut out all the lending. So people were renting and rents went up. And so in either case, you're okay if you've got good cash flow. That's my suggestion.
and that's kind of from what I understand happened to a lot of people that I know that have been through multiple cycles. The people who were flipping houses and wholesaling houses kind of got wiped out, and the people that survived and made it through had decent cash flow where they're still able to basically ride out that storm. Because eventually, we know historically real estate goes up. So unless some tragedy happens in the future where it changes how we see it. But I appreciate you coming on today. You're an awesome guest. Glad to have you on here. Sometime here soon, I'll come down and stand beside you and watch you in action down at the auction live and see what's going on, because I think that'd be pretty cool. If you have any last words of wisdom to our audience here, now's the time.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed being here. You asked for a phone number earlier.
Oh yeah, go ahead for that.
Should I get that? Let me give you my direct line, not the cell phone. It's I live in the country. We moved out of the city, and all our friends said, "You'll be back in 6 months," and that was 18 years ago. So it's kind of neat. We're looking at my cows, and you probably heard the office cat a few minutes ago behind me trying to get out.
The Lien.
But it's really neat. So my number is a 903 number. It's 903, and it's 776-2929.
So you live up there.
And I'm happy to answer questions for anyone who calls.
Yeah. So you live up there in Grayson County, huh? 903? Or
No, I'm in Hunt County. Just over the Collin County line.
Okay. Before I let you go, one last question. Do you have any, because a lot of people being out there in the country, you probably have a better idea of real estate and as far as properties being on land. And this is something that a lot of new investors stray away from because they don't know how to run comps. There's usually not a lot of comps on properties on land. And this could be a huge opportunity to pick up good deals. How would you kind of go about, pulling comps on a property like that when there's a lot of one-of-a-kind properties and there's nothing to compare it to, when there's not a lot of sales?
Well, there's a movement going on that I have named Hubonomics. I just made that word up. But, the primary cities that I talked about, the 5 big cities, and then the secondary cities, the Longview, the Tyler, the Abilene's. But it's the 3rd and 4th tier cities that I call Hubonomics, like Greenville and Burleson and Sherman and some of the smaller cities. They're booming. They are booming. And you would think, oh man, it's going to be tough to buy a house there. Who can who's going to live there? We bid on a property last month in Hunt County that had a value of $38,000. We bid $31,000. It sold for $43,500. So you know, these places are booming. In Greenville, Texas, here's a little sleepy town of 26,000 that the last 6 months of last year had 10 new franchise restaurants came in addition to the 25 they already had. And these people, they do their research. Burleson is booming. There's a little town that's become the bedroom community for Weatherford, for God's sake. That's booming. And what's happening, there are two things that happen to cause this. Number one, some of the millennials, when they're single and they live in Addison Circle, they live in Uptown, that's great. But when they get married and they can't afford to live in the city in Dallas, and they see this great value 30, 40 miles out that they can buy, and a lot of them are now working virtually. It doesn't matter what they live in. They go to this little community, and they've got a library, and they've got schools, and they've got a movie theater, and they've got a Walmart, and everything, and they're fine. And if you want to go into Dallas, it takes you 30, 40 minutes. Guess what? When you live in Dallas, it takes you 30, 40 minutes anyway on one of the freeways.
Yeah.
So a lot of that movement is going out there. In addition to that, you got the baby boomers. Here's a guy, he bought a house 25 years ago for $80,000. It's now worth $300,000. Why is he going to sit there on all that equity when for the same $80,000 he can go buy a great house out in the same area, have all that cash, and hey, they want to go out to eat at one of the fancy restaurants, they can drive in 30, 40 minutes to get there. But they have restaurants out there too. So you've got both these factors happening. And in addition to that, in the Hispanic community, those are the people working the agriculture. The kids, they grow up on the farms and they go off to school and they don't come back. So the Hispanics that are there, these communities, the Hispanic communities are developing there, and they're in all these small towns like in East Texas, and that's the breadbasket of the Metroplex. So you've got all these factors, and there's no problem renting these properties.
Yeah. Or selling them on payments or owner financing, guys. In the smaller areas, that's what we do. And we've done quite a bit up there in Sherman Denison, even out towards like Honey Grove and some of these real small areas. Getting mobile homes on land have been really good deals for us. Is a good strategy. That's probably for a whole nother call. But guys, we'll see you on the next episode. Arnie, great information today. Really glad to have you on here. And guys, if you want to contact him, check below the video. We'll have his links to his website and his phone number. And we'll see you when we see you. Have a good day.
Right. Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure.